The fire crackled softly, its orange glow casting flickering shadows on the surrounding trees. Jake leaned back in his camping chair, stretching his arms as he laughed at a joke Matt had just cracked. Beside him, Lisa and Kevin huddled close, sipping from their thermoses. The four of them had been looking forward to this weekend for months, a break from their stressful lives, a chance to reconnect in the great outdoors. The forest around them was silent, save for the occasional hoot of an owl in the distance. But something about that silence felt unnatural. It was too quiet. Then they heard it. A slow, scraping sound, like claws against bark. The laughter died instantly as they all turned toward the trees. The fire's light barely reached beyond their small clearing, and in the darkness beyond, something moved. Probably just a raccoon, Kevin said, though his voice lacked conviction. Lisa shifted uncomfortably. Or a bear. Jake narrowed his eyes, scanning the trees. Something wasn't right. The shape he thought he saw was too tall, too thin. He shook off the unease. Let's just stay alert. We'll keep the fire going all night, just in case. They tried to resume their conversation, but the tension lingered. Eventually, they retired to their tents, leaving the fire smoldering low. The night stretched on in silence until Jake woke to the sound of rustling outside his tent. He held his breath. Something was moving. Slowly, carefully, he unzipped the tent just enough to peer outside. A pale, thin humanoid figure crouched by the trees, its elongated fingers gripping the bark. Its hollow eyes reflected the dying embers of the fire. It didn't move at first, just stared. Then, with unnatural speed, it scurried backward, melting into the darkness. Jake's heart pounded. He zipped the tent closed, squeezing his eyes shut, willing himself to believe he had imagined it. But the next morning, as they packed up to go on a short hike, they'd found deep claw marks etched into the trees surrounding their camp. Maybe it was a bobcat, Kevin suggested. Jake shook his head. Those marks are too deep, too wide. Lisa frowned. Let's just be careful. They continued their day, hiking through the dense woods, but an uneasy feeling hung over them. Birds chirped, but the usual rustle of small animals was absent. It was as if the forest was holding its breath. That night, as they settled back into camp, Jake couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Then came the whispering. Low, distorted, his name repeated over and over. It was close. Too close. Jake bolted upright, shaking Matt awake. Do you hear that? Matt groggily sat up. Hear what? The whispering stopped. Jake swallowed hard. Never mind. The others slept uneasily, but Jake stayed awake listening. Waiting, but nothing came. By morning, everyone was on edge. Maybe we should leave, Lisa suggested hesitantly. Matt scoffed. Over some weird noises. Come on. We paid for this camping spot, we might as well get our money's worth. By nightfall, the atmosphere had shifted entirely. The fire felt smaller, the darkness deeper. The air was heavy, charged with something unseen. Then, without a sound, Matt vanished. One moment he was sitting beside the fire, reaching for his backpack. The next, he was gone. No struggle, no scream. Lisa let out a panicked cry. Matt, where are you? They searched frantically, calling his name, shining their flashlights in every direction. But there was no trace of him, no footprints leading away, just empty space where he had been. We need to go, Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. Now. They ran to the car, fumbling with the keys. The engine sputtered but wouldn't turn over. Jake swore under his breath, trying again. Still nothing. Then Kevin gasped, pointing up. Oh my God. Jake followed his gaze. Perched on a thick branch above them was the creature. It grinned. A grotesque, impossibly wide grin stretching across its face. Its elongated fingers twitched as if anticipating something. Then it moved. It launched from the tree, landing with a sickening crunch on the hood of the car. Clawed hands slammed against the windshield, cracking the glass. Lisa screamed as Kevin grabbed a flashlight, shining it directly at the creature's face. For a brief second, it recoiled, hissing, its skin blistering under the light. Then it lunged, slamming its fist through the windshield, grabbing Kevin by the throat. Jake reached for the door handle, desperate to escape, but the creature's long fingers wrapped around his wrist. A sharp pain shot through him as claws dug into his skin. Lisa scrambled to the passenger side, yanking the door open just as the creature let out a deafening screech. The last thing Jake remembered was the sound of metal tearing apart, the sensation of being pulled from the car, and Lisa's screams fading into the void. A week later, authorities found the vehicle on an abandoned dirt road, its doors ripped open, seats shredded. But of the four friends, there was no sign. The locals had warned them about the forest. The stories had been there for decades, but they had laughed them off, calling them urban legends. Now, they were part of the legend. Some say the rake still stalks those woods, waiting for its next victim. Would you stay in those woods overnight? Let me know in the comments below. The forest was ancient, its trees towering and gnarled, their branches intertwining to form a canopy that blocked out the sun. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, and the ground was carpeted with a layer of fallen leaves that crunched underfoot. It was a place that seemed untouched by time, a place where the modern world felt like a distant memory. Jake, Matt, Lisa, and Kevin had been drawn to the forest by the promise of adventure. They had spent weeks planning the trip, poring over maps and packing their gear with meticulous care. They had laughed and joked as they drove down the winding dirt road that led to the campsite, their excitement palpable. But now, as they stood in the clearing, the mood had shifted. The fire crackled softly, its orange glow casting flickering shadows on the surrounding trees. The laughter had died down, replaced by an uneasy silence. The forest was too quiet, the usual sounds of wildlife absent. Jake leaned back in his camping chair, stretching his arms as he tried to shake off the feeling of unease. He glanced at Matt, who was staring into the fire, his expression unreadable. Lisa and Kevin huddled close, sipping from their thermoses, their eyes darting nervously to the trees. Then they heard it. A slow, scraping sound, like claws against bark. The sound was faint, but it was enough to make them all freeze. The laughter died instantly as they turned toward the trees. The fire's light barely reached beyond their small clearing, and in the darkness beyond, something moved. Probably just a raccoon, Kevin said, though his voice lacked conviction. Lisa shifted uncomfortably. Or a bear. Jake scanned the trees. The shape he'd seen was too tall, too thin. Shaking it off, he muttered, "Let's stay alert and keep the fire going." They tried to relax, but tension lingered. Later that night, rustling woke Jake. Holding his breath, he unzipped the tent slightly. A pale, thin figure crouched by the trees, hollow eyes reflecting the fire's dying glow. It didn't move, just stared. Then, with unnatural speed, it scurried back into the darkness. Morning brought eerie proof, deep claw marks on the trees. Maybe a bobcat, Kevin offered. Jake shook his head. Too deep, too wide. As they hiked, the forest felt unnervingly still. That night, back at camp, Jake couldn't shake the feeling they weren't alone. The whispering came low, distorted, repeating Jake's name. Too close. He bolted upright, shaking Matt awake. "Do you hear that?" Matt groggily sat up. "Hear what?" Silence. By morning, tension hung thick. "Maybe we should leave," Lisa suggested. Matt scoffed. "Over some noises? We paid for this spot." That night, the fire felt smaller, the darkness heavier. Then Matt vanished. No sound, no struggle. One moment he was there, the next gone. They searched frantically, no footprints, no trace. "We need to go," Jake whispered. They ran to the car. The engine sputtered but refused to start. Kevin gasped, pointing up. "Oh my God." Jake followed his gaze. Perched above them, the creature grinned, a grotesquely wide smile. Its elongated fingers twitched before it leaped, landing with a sickening crunch on the car hood. Clawed hands slammed against the windshield, cracking the glass. Lisa screamed as Kevin shone a flashlight at it. The creature recoiled, hissing, its skin blistering under the light. Then it lunged, shattering the windshield, grabbing Kevin by the throat. Jake reached for the door, but its claws dug into his wrist. Lisa scrambled out as a deafening screech filled the air. The last thing Jake remembered was metal tearing, being yanked from the car, and Lisa's fading screams. A week later, authorities found the vehicle abandoned. Doors ripped open, seats shredded. But the friends were gone. The locals had warned them. Now they were part of the legend.
That's all for today's video. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments down below. And make sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more future updates. See you next time.